Welcome to Bump Set Chat, the podcast where volleyball professionals come on and share their stories, experiences, and advice. And today, Pat Ryan, director of the Husky Volleyball Club in Connecticut. Welcome to Bump Set Chat, a podcast for volleyball professionals that come on and share their stories, journeys, and experiences. And today I'm super excited. I have Pat Ryan, the director of Husky Volleyball here in Connecticut. Welcome.
Well, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, glad you're here. So the way we start the podcast off is three random questions. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Favorite place you've ever played volleyball?
Favorite place I played volleyball? I'm gonna say, there've been some interesting experiences. Last month I played in Mallorca, Spain, which was great. The
Wow.
teams we played against were, you know, pretty loud in their fan base.
Yeah.
I play in Utah every year at a senior games the last couple of years, and that's been a great place to play just for location. So I'm probably gonna stick with Spain.
All right.
Yeah, Mallorca, Spain.
Tough to top that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Second question. You're heading out to your favorite place to eat. What are you ordering?
Let's see. My wife probably won't watch this, but I do eat at Taco Bell from time to time.
Yeah.
As you get older, it's probably not the best diet for me. And even in my 30s, when they started to publish nutrition info, and I looked at my like normal order, I'm like, wow, that's like a week's worth of sodium and 3 days worth of fat in one thing. So I cut it down a lot. So it's the number three, which is a Burrito Supreme, no onions.
Nice.
Combo with a taco supreme on it. So
I'm right there with you. My wife's a nurse, and yeah, when I say I'm going to Taco Bell, I get that frowny look. Like you probably shouldn't be doing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I know,
Yep. All
I,
right,
I
third
own it.
question. So I've watched the Pat on the Court videos, so I got to ask
Okay.
you, what is your volleyball ick?
Uh, it to me is I'm gonna sound like an old person. It's the changing fashion. So like right now the white knee pads are back in after black knee pads having been dominant for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, I'm gonna change my answer because another one hit me. The sleeveless shirts
Yeah.
with sleeves underneath just
Ah,
seems crazy to me. It doesn't look comfortable, and I don't understand the point of. And again, I'm getting really poor justifications when the kids are saying, "Oh, can we get sleeveless shirts with sleeves?" I'm like, well, those are just long sleeve shirts with holes around the shoulders.
right.
But I don't know that I'll win that argument.
No. All right. So let's get started here. So actually, we discovered Husky about a year ago with my daughter finding the place, and we rolled into it. She loved it. I got hooked on it. You guys got a wonderful organization going on up there. I got to say, it's fabulous.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's been a
So
long time coming for us.
yeah. So we're gonna dive into that whole story. So first of all, who was Pat Ryan before you just discovered Husky? What's your
Um,
background?
so I started playing volleyball as a senior in high school, which is a whole nother story because there wasn't boys volleyball where I was. So I'm from Western Massachusetts, and then I played a lot. Like I like to say now, because my body's still holding together, just enough too much volleyball I've played in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So not enough that I need hips and knees replaced and stuff like that. You know, but I played probably until my mid 30s, and then I went to a UCONN women's game just to watch it. And I'd been reffing at the time. Actually, I didn't even ref the game, and I ran into a friend of mine from high school and college who I played with, and he said, "Hey, Glastonbury High School here in Connecticut, just boys volleyball became official. I have an assistant coach. Do you want to coach?" And I'm like, I still like to play all the time. He's like, "Well, one of our kids is 6'10", right? Is a boy." And I'm in my head, I'm like, well, let's see, if the kid's 17 now, and then he goes to college and plays and comes back, I can extend my career a few years longer. Like I was in my mid 30s then, you
Yeah.
know. So then I started coaching volleyball at that point, mid 30s, because up to that point I really only wanted to play.
Yeah.
But you know, volleyball and club volleyball, I'll call it my other full-time job. Like it's not my real job, that you would say, but it takes more work than what my real job is. So
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that goes. So actually, Glastonbury had a boys volleyball team in high school.
so this was my first year coaching there was 96. So I think in Connecticut, that was the first year that they officially, the Connecticut high school governing body officially said, hey, this is a sport versus just being a club at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know a few guys that had played a couple of years before that I've met, but it was an unofficial sport in Connecticut for boys volleyball.
Yeah, because like when I'm from Canada originally, and we played from middle school all the way through. And I had one of the coaches from U of Hawaii on, and I didn't even know how big it was over there. But they play from middle school as well, for from a boys volleyball standpoint. And then when we moved down here in Connecticut, it was just playing other players. I'd ask them about they play in high school. Nobody played in high school except for the guys who weren't from here, and I was just I was kind of shocked that there was not really a boys high school. Yeah, wasn't a large presence.
Well, I went to UMass Amherst, and so I played club volleyball there in college, and only the guys from out of state had ever played before. So mostly we were getting players out of like off of the intramural teams that were, 6 foot tall frat guys or
Yeah,
whatever. And they picked it up quickly. We had a blast doing it, back then, but there wasn't a starting. Playing in Mallorca, Spain, so I played for the USA 48 and over team in this tournament. And so, I'm talking to the guys, and these are guys that I'm playing with that played at Pepperdine, USC, UC Santa Barbara, all these schools. They're like, "Oh, did you play pro anywhere?" I'm like, "I'm an East Coast guy. There was no
right.
route to pro for me. There were a small, tiny handful of colleges on the East Coast that had volleyball. I started playing my senior in high school, so I'm not going to Rutgers, Penn State, and I think George Mason had been new there,
Yeah,
and that was most of all the East Coast volleyball that was going on at Springfield College, Division 3 level and stuff like that. But
yeah,
nothing where anybody would turn
yeah.
pro out of.
So and then what first of all, let's start. What is the Husky Volleyball Club?
So we started in '99, and so our first year story was I'd been filling in on the girls' side. So I coached boys at Glastonbury High School. I did for 24 years. I stopped, the
Wow.
year following COVID because the club was getting too big. But I would fill in an occasional year on the girls' side if somebody relocated late or went on maternity. And so one of those years we had the 6'10" kid's younger sister, who was about 6'2", had been playing some club volleyball, and then like fewer and fewer of our girls just in the first 2 or 3 years started playing because there was nothing really close to us. And so one of the moms was like, "Oh, you should go start a volleyball club." So I said, "Well, I could look into it." So I said, "Hey, I'm going to start girls." I knew some people in the area, so I was able to get like a small 2-court gym. We started with 5 or 6, and it was only going to be just girls then, even though I was a boys coach at that point. And then all of a sudden, the other boys club in Connecticut just said, "Yeah, we're not going to run anymore." So then I added boys at a, kind of a last minute decision, like literally 2 weeks before, the season was supposed to start.
Yeah,
And even that first year, our team, had done, like the kids had limited club experience, but went to the New England finals for 18s, lost in the finals as they were finally all starting to put it together. So we've gone from, very small, humble beginnings to now we have two 6-court volleyball centers in central Connecticut. And last winter we had 86 teams. So we
wow.
had 11 boys teams and 75 girls teams, and it's been out of control.
That's amazing. And and it's not just the six courts on two different locations. You have out some beach courts as well, and a workout facility, a nice area for the parents to hang out. It's not just a big old empty warehouse full of volleyball courts.
Yeah, that our first place, which we moved out of during COVID, our landlord had, convinced us to move to the other building where we could add beach courts outside and have that workout area up above. And I mean, our first landlord was fantastic. We had moved around between, many different gyms for, the first 15 years or something like that, that we were around, and it was challenging then,
Yeah,
because we're at the mercy of them double booking, somebody, losing the keys, that was supposed to open the gym for us, or, I mean, a
yeah,
variety of things. Having facilities added a whole nother level of complexity that I wasn't prepared for. And then even adding a second one, it's like it's not twice the work, it's like 4 times the work of having one. There's just more to coordinate. So
yeah. And now, did you ever think it would grow to where it is today?
I would have laughed in my own face, at that point of just saying, "Hey, what if you had like 12 courts someday?" And when we were younger, every time we needed courts, like my goal was like to make us kind of a grassroots organization, and I never wanted to say no and have to cut any kids. And so the only time we did that was during COVID when we had like state mandated
Mm-hmm.
capacity restrictions, you know. And again, we turned that year, we turned away 130 kids got on the waiting list, and maybe, you know, five got in. And I felt bad for that. So then we had to try to, you know, we needed COVID to go away so that
Yep.
we could run at our normal capacity. And then, you know, every time we've needed more courts, I'm like, you know, I got to find them somewhere. So
And now, what was it like coming out of COVID? You know, you had all these regulations, masks, and then just everybody's sort of nervous about getting together.
well, I think the worst part was going into COVID, because what happened that year is, uh, uh, and I remember it really distinctly because we were in the middle of our tryouts, and I think it was on a Friday, they said, "Hey, as of Monday, that's the last day you can do what you're doing. Like, we're restricting
Wow.
you." And so we interrupted our tryouts for our oldest age groups basically right there. And it was my birthday was the day that we had to shut down, you
Oh
know.
God.
And then with no opening date in sight after that site. If we were, you know, in our old model before we had our own building, if it was like, "Hey, you know, we're renting at three different gyms. Hey, here's the keys, we'll see you guys when we open up," you know, that would have been fine. But, you know, now I'm like, well, you know, like we try to, keep some reserve. So, I had to talk with my landlord about saying, look, we don't know when we're going to possibly be able to open it again. And like, what do we, how can you help us survive? Which he did. Our landlord was amazing.
Nice.
He was able to help us out. We had reduced rent. We were allowed to do very small, up to four people on a court when we were doing it. And I mean, I know a lot of the kids were nervous and parents were nervous coming in, and we gave them options. They said, hey, you can, we're going to pick up the season where we left off when we're allowed to reopen. We'll extend it for the extra months. And I think about 70% of the kids said, yeah, we want to still play. We finished the season at the very end of June instead of early May like we do. And I mean, the parents were great, kids were great. And as far as I know, because we used to track it, we were just, very hyper vigilant about
Yep.
everything. I don't think we had any cases of spread in the club, during that period. We never had more than one kid on one team catch it at the same time.
Nice.
So, and then coming back up, same kind of thing. People were a little nervous coming in, back into the gym, and, it just felt weird. And the first time we were allowed to not wear masks is when we were outdoors on our beach courts. It was during beach season. And, I mean, as we all know, after all that, you just go walking in public without a mask and you felt like, is this okay? After wearing them for so long.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. And talking about like family and whatnot, the parents. That's the one thing that really struck me when I, went there. It's like everybody who is there, they love the sport. The coaches, the players, the parents are learning about the sport and seeing how much fun it is. And like even after the practice or whatever was done, the coaches would play with the kids, and it's just that's so nice to see.
I mean, volleyball is a different environment than a lot of sports. And one position I've had is the New England Director of Compliance. So I'm like the vice principal. When there are troubles with players, parents, that kind of thing, they end up getting an email from me over it, and or the club directors do. And so sometimes, well, parents, especially with the younger parents or new to volleyball, have to learn to use their indoor voices, at a soccer field or a
Yeah.
basketball game. They can scream out and, complain about the officiating and stuff like that. And it's not something that's really done, accepted in the culture of our sport,
Yeah.
and everybody, it's such a sport that you rely on your teammates so much that a good team needs to have good chemistry. Everybody needs to, get along, try to help each other. And
Yeah.
the kids who don't do as well are the ones that take longer to buy into that philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah, something you just sort of remind me of, like, being an official of, like, the high school games. What I've noticed is a lot of the parents don't know the rules of the sport, and they're yelling at the ref because they don't know what, oh, it's just four touches, or, you're calling it, why'd you call that? And it was, it was a double hit or whatnot. And I had a conversation with our high school coach who coached basketball and then moved over to volleyball. And she said she moved to volleyball because it was great because none of the parents knew what was going on. So they couldn't say, hey, why are you running this or why are you running that?
Well, look, I will say this, and so, I'll say it a little bit more quietly, but like even parents who have been in the club, 3, 4, 5 years and their kids are seniors, have a shocking lack of knowledge of the actual rules and what could be. So like I spend most of my time, so I'm not coaching any club teams now, but when I do, going around the courts and and whether it's our parents or parents from other clubs and they're just watching a match, they're like, "What was the call?" And then I explain to them, not I never tell them what I saw. I said, "Here's what the rule is.
Yeah.
Here's what the referee said they saw." And you know
Yeah.
they're generally humble about it.
Nice. And now, somebody who's been deeply connected to the volleyball scene in Connecticut, how have you seen the sport grow and evolve over in the region over the years?
Well, so when we first started, the Connecticut teams generally were weak in New England. It was you know, for a lot of the teams, we would go play the Boston area teams, again, much bigger population
Yeah.
area, programs for younger kids and stuff like that, and would not fare well against the top teams, and now the 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 talent level of the younger players has expanded so much to in the state there are more opportunities. Our goal has been to try to get more younger kids, and I feel like we're a third of the way of where we want to be about getting them started, because when people move to Connecticut or Massachusetts, where I was from, or all of New England, 15 years ago, almost all the kids were starting in ninth grade. The girls would walk into high school, say, okay, I'm going to learn volleyball now. And anybody who moved here from outside, and I would always ask them, hey, when did you start playing volleyball? And they were almost all, fifth grade was a common answer for that. So
Yeah.
now we're getting more younger kids. We just finished our top travel team tryouts for our middle school and younger. We had 110 kids who tried out for those programs, and like the level of them has improved immensely. 10 years ago, I think we had two or three. And then last year we had, 11, 12, 13, 14 teams of eighth grade and younger
Yeah.
players, so they're all getting a lot better. And like when we go to these further away tournaments, when the younger kids then go see a team from Texas or California or
Yeah.
Michigan, and they're like, wait, those kids are our age and look at how good they are. So then they say, oh, now all of a sudden, they've raised their own ceiling.
Yeah. Yeah, your Husky Junior program is fantastic, and the other plus to that is, they come and play Husky Juniors, then they go back to their schools and play, and the other kids see how good they are, and then that sort of spreads. Because I've seen it, myself, other parents like, hey, your daughter is this, where did she play? And you got to go to Husky.
Yeah, and that's what, sending them back. Like one thing that, as club director, I know is that like high school kids and parents, they'll travel from a distance. We've had kids they'll come play with us from the Danbury area, from, recently Rhode Island,
Yeah.
far Western Mass, up by Pittsfield, so they'll come from all over. But younger kids, the parents, generally it's like a 10 or 15-minute drive, so that, we just got into our Newington facility, just about a year ago now. So that opens up a whole new area. They're only 20 minutes apart, but they're in the center of population versus our original building is kind of at the edge, and all to our backs is just, woods and farms and stuff like that. The other one is all suburban. So getting those younger kids playing. And one advantage we used to have sort of is, would be in another facility. There was a big sports bubble there that had, six volleyball courts, and two basketball courts, and turf soccer fields indoors. Is we get a lot of kids who would reach out to me, or parents would say, hey, my daughter saw these kids playing volleyball, now we want to play volleyball. So not being in there, hurts us a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think the word is out more now that we just have a lot of inquiries that come in about, hey, my daughter wants to play volleyball, how does she get started,
Yeah.
which is great.
Absolutely. And now, you guys, Husky volleyball is just not, a particular age for girls to play. You guys span boys and girls, multiple levels, from, club travel teams to sort of like, I'm from Canada. We used to call it like house league hockey, basically, just a local, all the kids in town are playing on different teams. And you have that set up for the kids too.
Yeah, when so having our own building, right, we have to pay rent year round. So once club season ends, we're like, okay, now how do we pay our landlord some rent? So we have a spring and a fall program. And the spring is, we get probably 50-50 high school and middle schoolers, and then the fall program is almost all middle schoolers because kids on their high school teams can't play during the season in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, we're getting like close to 300 kids at each of those, and then in addition to summer camp. So we don't really have too many slow times of year right now.
Yeah, and you're really running. That's, I think right now is your sort of your busy time of season because you're setting up your regionals, and then coming up soon is the sort of the tryouts for the high performance teams.
Yeah, starting next week, it gets really busy. This week we're doing a lot of prep work. We finalized our middle school tryouts for the teams that do travel, and then starting next week, it's freshmen. The week after that, sophomores, and the week after that, our juniors and seniors. And we do that to pace with the Connecticut high school playoff calendar because the
Yeah,
kids can't come to any tryouts, no clinics, anything like that during the season.
yeah.
So during their high school season.
And with with that, how do you go about finding the coaches? Because I got to imagine it's not an easy thing to do, especially in Connecticut.
Well, I mean, that's a big challenge for us, courts and coaches. And, I'm in a minor panic basically every single year, of trying to find them. We've during COVID, several of the clubs around the edges of us had shut down. They couldn't get facilities anymore. And so we even got more kids coming further away, but we had fewer teams to play against, which goes till this day. So we brought some of our teams all in that in-house program. And, we had always prior to 2020, it had been one coach, one team. And now, we run on an accelerated format, which all of New England runs on now, where you can play a tournament in a half day. Players or teams aren't sitting, so you're going to play a lot. Maybe if you're lucky, you have one round off, do the playoffs, and then go. So we've at least been able to get um, with a bunch of coaches want to coach two teams. So
Oh,
they're
nice.
able to do two. We can schedule it around that. But like our coaches are of a wide variety. Adults who have started to play volleyball, ex-college players, current college players coach for us now with our younger ones, and even with the younger coaches, the majority of them are fantastic. They're super conscientious.
Yeah,
They're great with the kids. And help us providing them some support by having some more senior coaches to work with them on practice planning. And those senior coaches include, like, we have some college coaches that are like, hey, well, I'll come down on Sundays when those programs are running and help teach the kids or teach the coaches, act as an extra set of eyes on the kids. And so that's worked out great for us
yeah.
with our newer coaches especially. And we have so many coaches now who are alumni of the program. So 15 years ago I couldn't say that, but all of a sudden I smartened up a little bit, and as they're graduating I'm like, hey, hopefully in a couple of years you guys will come back and coach. And a lot of them do. Like, I would probably say, without running the numbers, probably three-quarters of our coaches are club alumni.
Yeah, excellent. Well, even just the short bit of travel our school does, and my daughter runs across. We come across a lot of familiar faces who either they're wearing the Husky jersey, or she goes, oh yeah, I played with that person, or seeing other coaches at different high schools. It's just it's refreshing, and it just speaks to what kind of a program you have in place that it's everywhere.
Yeah, we have a lot of coaches that go out and they want to go see their kids, during their high school seasons. And then, like, when club teammates see against each other, it's like a big family reunion, for them. And, look, talking to the kids, I know that they feel a lot of pressure from the high school season that isn't necessarily there during the club season. And so, like we're the cherry on top of the dessert, for their volleyball during the year.
Yeah,
We try to we want to make sure that they're having fun with it and try to refocus them. One philosophy we try to get through to the kids, with varying levels of success, is that, look, don't worry about the result. Let's think about just you being better at the end of the day when you leave practice than when you came into practice. And don't compare yourself to the kid next to you, the one on the other court, somebody across on the other side of the net. You need to be a better you, and then that everything takes care of itself. We do this when I talk to kids at camps. I said, look, I'll do my best to you know to show you, or we as coaches will, the right way to do it. And if you just stick with it for a while, you know, we're pretty sure you're going to be better. Just take your time and don't rush yourself. Because like as a club director, it still shocks me when I look at kids in, seventh, eighth, ninth grade, and then compare what that kid's going to be when they're a senior in high school, and I can't see the path. And again, you know, my daughter played with us, and watching her as a seventh, eighth grader, and then the kids she's playing with and against as a senior, like I said, it's hard to see how they got there from there, because I'm like, wow, these little kids are going to get killed in a couple of years if they don't get a lot better.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of the kids who start younger, the ones in the end who are doing better. We do get some kids who come in 10th, 11th grade, and that maybe they play another sport, and then basketball usually, right? And then they're like, oh, I think my daughter would like to, get into volleyball, and maybe switch over and stuff like that. And at that point, it does get a little late for them if they, even if they're like 6'2", and they have these Division 1
Mm-hmm.
uh, volleyball dreams. It's hard for them to catch up on that too. So, I mean, one problem we have in Connecticut is the UConn women's basketball team so successful. And, so a lot of the really, tall kids who are playing basketball said, oh, I want to go play, basketball at UConn. We kind of know that, the chances are remote, but they get into it. And then maybe when, they could be potentially very good basketball or volleyball players, and then when they finally decide, oh, I like volleyball better, it might be, it's not too late for them to be good volleyball players someday, but we'll be a freshman in college, and then if they want to go play at one of the local Division 1 schools. So I'm trying to encourage them just to try it a little bit more, a little
Yeah.
bit earlier, and then you can make the decision.
Yeah, something I try to, when I meet other parents who their kids are just starting into volleyball, I try to encourage them, hey, we're in a great part of the state. You can go see Yale play. You can go see UConn play. UConn has a brand new facility up there. It's free. Go see what volleyball is like, because often the parents have this idea of volleyball is just this, backyard thing that we just play, and it's just, throw the ball around essentially.
Yeah, and it's hard to even get a good idea watching it on television. A lot of times when the kids are going to watch, I'll tell our club players, I'm like, hey, go to one of the games, UConn, Yale, Hartford, Central Connecticut. And then after the game, just walk by their bench. Or if they have autographs, go walk by and just get a size. These kids are, you know, pretty tall, pretty muscular. And just like you don't have to go in the gym and lift every day kind of thing,
Yeah.
but just get an idea of what the path forward looks like, and we again as a club, I'm not into putting excessive amount of pressure and say, hey, you know, we're training everybody for college scholarships or anything like that. That gets to be, counterproductive. I
Mm-hmm.
said, but like if you want to play in college, almost every player can find a college to go play volleyball at, and again, they may not be Stanford, Wisconsin, or Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
But like we're in the heart of Division 3 schools here. And like I said, we had over 30 players last year who were seniors that are playing in college this year somewhere,
That's fantastic.
and across all levels of the program.
Yeah. And now speaking of different levels of program and nationwide, like when your club team goes plays in like the regionals or I mean nationals and whatnot, where do how does Husky or the Connecticut teams compare to those teams that you run up across? Like I'm sure California or Texas are strong places.
Uh, New England, the Northeast, and probably most of the East Coast is probably still in the bottom quarter nationally. And again, that's not a slight on the players that we have
Yeah.
here. But like we're in Hartford, Connecticut. We're a relatively small market. And when you're trying to compete against kids from Chicago, Southern California, the population there,
Yeah.
and then even the history of it, the multi-generational volleyball players that come out, we're a ways away. When we first started going to nationals, we wouldn't win a single set ever,
Yeah.
for a couple of years, and I'm like, do you guys still want to go there? And they're like, yeah, it was like the greatest thing ever. So, now we've become, more competitive, or typically move up a couple of flights from the bottom,
Yeah.
on these tournaments. And again, the teams that are at the USA Volleyball Junior Nationals, in the division we play in, have all earned a bid somehow. So like, our teams will go and have to win or finish top two or three in certain tournaments to get there, or have a certain ranking within the region to get in there. So we just couldn't go enter. You know, AAU has a junior nationals now, which is in Orlando every year. The USA Volleyball ones move around. We've started to send more and more teams there. I think last year we sent 7 or 8 teams to, you know, some variety of nationals last year, and they have multi-levels, so you know we can see more success there.
Yeah.
And you know, Orlando's obviously, you know, a fun location too, although it's in early June. So you know, if you like heat, high humidity, and fire ants, you
Yeah.
know, with the occasional gator, I guess it's the place to go.
And with adding to that, it's got to be fun for the kids because they're traveling. How like you said, you asked, they got beat, but do they want to go back? And the response was yeah. It's just a fun experience, a bonding experience, and making these friendships that and memories is just a really good thing for them.
Well, that's the stuff that they remember. You know, they probably go to their, you know, they can go into their room and they have, you know, a shelf full of, you know, medals kind of thing, you know, and then maybe when they visit home, 5 or 10 years after they get out, they'll look at them, you know, briefly, but like they're all friends. You know, my daughter and I know a lot of the club kids, their friends that they still talk to all the time are kids they played club volleyball with, you know, because
Yeah.
you're with them, you travel a lot, you have great times, you know, going to restaurants or just hanging out and, you know, uh, uh, you know, talking with kids even now probably, you know, just watching the same videos
Yeah.
on each other's phones over and over again. But, you
Yeah.
know, those are the things that the kids remember, you know, for a really long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing another thing I really liked about it is like taking my daughter up there. It's not that it's a she has a clean start. Like all these friends don't know that who she is. It's just everybody's starting at the same level with the volleyball, and then at the end of the first or second practices, they're exchanging their TikTok information or Instagrams. It's special to see that them just start new friendships there.
Yeah, we see a ton of kids doing their TikTok videos in the gym, in the lobby, you know, parking lot, whatever. You know, like
Yeah.
I can tell right away. I know what they're doing when they're all like three of them line up together, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stay out of the background of this one, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, you touched a little bit about playing Division 1 or moving on to college or whatnot. What does Husky have in place, or is there a path to help kids learn the steps to either be recruited or playing at that next level of college?
Yeah, the coaches are always a resource. You know, we do have a recruiting coordinator, you know, typically on usually one or two coaches that will refer people to that are looking to go play in college.
Yeah,
You know, again, COVID kind of throws a wrench in some of this because and again, college coaches hate it as much because the kids got an extra in college, got an extra year of eligibility,
yeah,
and you know, they had some recruiting classes double up. And I know, you know, we had some athletes that, you know, it's, you know, they're in the boat of the coach saying, hey, we want you to come, but like we have another year who's coming back and taking a fifth year, you know, so you know, it was hard for all parties right then, both the
yeah,
coaches and the athletes to kind of figure it out. So we feel like, you know, things are settling out of that basically, you know, just about right now. So we'll have a better idea
yeah,
of what it looks like, you know. But there are like some recruiting showcases, you know, that go on, you know, in Hartford, Boston, some of the big tournaments. I actually MC the one that's at the Winterfest, which goes on in January in Hartford. So, we have a regular pipeline and we know a lot of the coaches. And, you know, I just ask the kids, you know, look, you've got to do some research, right? If you go into a convention center that has, you know, 30, 80, 100 courts, the chances of some college coach walking by and discovering you when you make a great play, you happen to be in, and then you make a great play or a couple of great plays in the amount of time when they're standing on the corner and have four courts, you know, all around them is low. Reach out to the college coaches, send them an email,
yeah,
say, hey, I'm interested in your school. I'm playing at this tournament. You know, the tournament's off scheduling software. Here's our schedule, which updates live online. And those college coaches will go watch you. I mean, you know, they will always do that. And that's what all the coaches say. Yeah, if kid writes me, I'll go, you know, I'll look at some video if they're far away and then decide whether I want to go see him in person.
yeah.
And, you know, I mean, they don't want to miss anybody as much as the players don't want to be missed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and adding on to that, that echoes exactly what the Hawaiian coach that was just on my podcast talked about. Is like, if you're interested in school, email them. There's email addresses there. Reach out to them and start talking to them. And then he also added on that, the college recruiters, they don't go to high schools mainly they don't go to watch high school games because they don't have the time for that. It's more going to watch the club tournaments is where they can see more people play.
Well, right. When they go to high school games, number one, they're in season, right? So, like you said, they don't have the time,
Yeah.
and the level can be really inconsistent. And they're looking at all different age
Right.
groups, grades mixed together. When they go to the club tournaments, they'll go see, courts of only sophomores that are playing 16 and under, or
Yeah.
only freshmen or only juniors. So when they get there, now they can see a bunch of kids, and the level of play is a lot more compressed, right? It's
Right.
not like if I'm a college coach and I go watch somebody win, you know, 25-10, 25-12, that kind of thing, I'm going to feel like I didn't get to see anything. One team is, getting a bunch of aces,
Yeah.
and, there's really nothing to to see, right? I can't see, the kid I'm going to watch as a hitter facing a big block or a defense or anything like that. So,
Yeah. And now, talking about sort of fundamentals, kids just learning, starting out the game, sort of what sort of skills or techniques do you think, a young volleyball player should sort of focus on at first?
well, at all levels, serving and serve receive are going to be the most important ones, and as we started to do better nationally, we found, like, even early on, our offense was in the ballpark, except that we weren't passing well enough to really run an offense. We're passing, below average, and our setters had choice of one hitter or their bump setting. And then we found, as our passing got better, that we were then able to run an offense, and then our hitters were more successful because they weren't getting, you know, strong double blocked all the time, and we're moved ball, faster out to the antennas. And same thing, as our serving got better, we were able to uh, give the other teams a lower opportunity chances to run their offense, because if our serving wasn't tough, and again, it was tough Connecticut wise, but it wasn't tough when you go play these other teams. Every pass would be perfect.
Right.
So that's the big differential, is that, if they can serve and pass, then you get to do all the other good stuff, and then
Yeah.
you can focus more on your blocking. My advice always to kids who are hitters is that, and especially young hitters, they tend to not want to be late. They leave early, they shuffle in, maybe they jump up and they tip a lot of balls. And, as a club director and for high school level club coach, I want them to go see up and just go and start ripping at the ball
Yeah.
and trying to put some velocity on it, because the other teams are just going to, get all the balls up. And again, you see less success, like, as eighth and ninth graders, you'll make more hitting errors, but when and you'll but if you're sort of tipping the ball over a lot, you'll beat some teams that aren't so good because they won't be able to return it, but the better teams will kill you, right?
Yeah.
If you go up and start swinging harder, you may lose to some teams that are a little worse than you because you're making a lot of errors, but you're going to challenge the better teams more when you're on. Let's play for tomorrow, not for today.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly what I saw in a high school game just last night was, the team that won, they were pounding the ball, they still hit it into the net, but they still pounded it. Whereas the other team, they were just making, they were putting the ball over more, but they were just like so like you said, just tips or just pop it up and those
Yeah, starting a free ball drill for the team on offense.
exactly, yeah,
So
totally. So,
yeah.
and now as a club owner, working on developing competitive teams, sort of, what are the qualities are you looking for these kids to, that you like that pop out or stick out for you to say, yep, that's definitely one.
Yeah, I mean, we want them to be aggressive and we want them to take chances, like playing it safe is going to slow your development. Yeah, if you're uh, if if you're trying to keep every ball alive, you're chasing it down, that'll get coaches' eyes. If you're taking hard swings at the ball, like, periodically I'm at tryouts and I'll hear a sound, and like I'm turning around, I'm like, okay, who hit that ball? Like, you can just hear it. It's the same with,
Yeah.
like, in baseball, when you hear the ball hitting a catcher's mitt, you can tell the difference between a 70-mile-an-hour fastball and a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. And it's the same thing. Sometimes it's a kid I already know. and I'm like, oh yeah, I know she can hit hard, but it's when those kids show up to tryouts, especially for the younger ones, and then you hear that sound of somebody, thumping the ball pretty hard or the bouncing off the floor, and that's a new kid.
Yeah,
That catches everybody's attention there. So,
absolutely.
and again, the other thing is just being a great teammate. Your your job more than anything is to make your teammates look better, for everything. So if somebody, makes a terrible pass, everybody's got to be prepared to fix that ball. The setter's got to chase it down, all that, and without complaining.
Yeah,
It's the coach's job to decide, if somebody's not doing well and you need to make a change, and not, uh, you know, like as a setter, you can't get mad because somebody's not passing well,
yeah,
because it's still your job. If you get another pass, that you've got to go chase it down, and you're not going to get the most out of your teammates if you guys are, getting snippy with each other and
absolutely.
saying, "Oh, she's passing badly on purpose." And you're like, "What?" Nobody's passing badly on purpose,
Yeah,
So let he who is without the first shank ball judge others, that
yeah.
kind of thing. So,
So two things off that. It was like it seems like you're just you know what question is coming next here. So how do you create a positive and supportive team culture with the Husky Volleyball Club? What role does cohesion play in success on the court?
I don't, we try to pass the information down to our coaches about this is what we expect, So like when I give them, uh, you know, some communication at the beginning of the season, whether it's new or returning coaches, I'm always going to say, I never put any pressure on you to win any match. Like you need to push your team forward, and then the results will be incidental, And I think maybe, when they feel that, and again, I definitely can say that not all coaches, buy into that, right? And again, for me, when I was a young coach, in my 30s, which is still, pretty old, is that, I felt my ego was there on the line if we wouldn't do well. And the guy I first started coaching with said, no, you're doing like a great job. If you're coaching, ninth and 10th graders, is that an average season, like we used to play 19 games back then,
Mm-hmm.
say an average season, you'd be 9-9, in a good season, probably 10-8, and a bad season, 8-10. Like there's just not, it's not decisive enough there.
Yeah.
So that I mean that mentally put me at ease a little bit, And so, if the kids are executing the skills properly, they're putting the effort in and they're being competitive, like that's what we want. Like the winning is going to be incidental. I try to keep telling them that. If we do everything we want to do, I did this as a coach and as club director, that we'll just happen to win because we're using the right strategies, tactics, training methods, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if things aren't going well, and I tell this with my coaches again, when we have a large number of teams, again, when you have 86 teams, compared to a smaller club, something they see once every 10 years, I see every year,
Yeah.
so we sort of have a little larger proving ground there,
Yeah.
so when I'm asking them to, help me see surprises before they come, right? I don't want them to hide things on us. And we look at the results, we see how the teams are doing, see if anybody needs, any sort of extra help and intervention. If kids aren't getting along, let me know. If you have parents that are getting out of line, let me know. And we want to deal with it early, because as a club director, sometimes, we have, a parent or player that's unhappy with the kid's
Yeah.
role on the team. And if they say, okay, in April, all season long, we had this problem, And I said, look, if we talk about it in February and we talk to the coaches and, your player wants to work on this, she doesn't feel she's strong in that, she wants to change positions, something like that, let's do it when we can do something about it.
Yeah.
Let's try to figure out, our best solution there.
Yeah.
And again, I try to reiterate to the kids saying, look, you know, if you have fun, uh, you're just going to win more. Everybody's going
Yeah.
to have a better attitude. You're going to support each other. And, if you're holding grudges and, all around not happy, even winning, you're not going to enjoy. So why do it if you're not having fun?
Yeah. And adding on to the having fun aspect, you just the benches look like they all have fun, like you got the kids on the court and then the kids that are on the bench, they're just having a blast. And like you look any of the college girls games, they're all like doing dances and whatnot, and it's just so much fun to watch.
And I think props to the college teams, that are doing that,
Yeah.
because for our kids, when they see that and the bench stays involved, so those kids, when it's their turn to come in, are instantly, they're bringing the energy, that helps the entire team. They've all got to realize, hey, you know, we're having, you know, we're having fun here as a group, like it's not just, three of the kids are having fun out there. It's a group effort, and they train together, they compete together, they celebrate together, and they try to pull each other up when you know they get hit with maybe a little bit of adversity. So
Yep. Absolutely. And how has the sort of landscape of volleyball evolved over the years? And do you see any trends emerging in the sport?
um as far as rule changes or just in
Yeah,
general.
I guess overall the skill level just keeps getting better, and then we can talk about any things that sort of a different discussion about does volleyball need to change anything from like rules aspect?
To be honest, I would hate to see them change too much. And again, this isn't just from a elderly club director, but like periodically the governing bodies have gone in, they changed some rules, usually for the better, and then, but they don't always anticipate the unintended consequences. So for example, the libero position was the biggest backfire in the history of rules backfires, because originally they're like, hey, let's bring some more defense into the game, right? We'll bring a defensive specialist in
Hmm.
there. The rallies will be longer because they're getting them too short. What in fact happened was the serve receive got better, and then the offenses got more efficient, and the rallies, continued to shorten,
Yeah.
and internationally they play mostly from the men's game is oriented to it. And,
Hmm.
only in the last, 5 or 10 years, they pay even more attention, pay as much attention to changes in the women's game, which
Yeah.
is, a positive development, but I feel more kids getting into it younger is, helping the game. That's pretty well developed in a lot of parts of the country.
Hmm.
Again, not so much on the East Coast. So I'm looking forward to seeing that trend to continue to
Yeah.
develop, because like soccer, and again, not to disparage soccer players, but the ball's on the ground, it can sit there. You watch little kids soccer games where they're all
Yeah.
clustered around the ball or whatever. In volleyball, you can't start playing volleyball really easily in anything that looks like volleyball when you're in kindergarten or first grade, because the kids, they don't have the motor skills, they can't
Right.
track the ball. The ball hits the ground, rallies over, kind of thing. So they get to start later, and now elite soccer, basketball, whatever, starts for these kids in third grade, which just seems crazy to me.
Yep. No.
But again, their sports lend them to it, right? In
Yep.
baseball, softball, you can put it on a tee, kids can hit off it,
Right.
you know. Then they run the wrong way, they get in their home run trots. You watch it on America's Funniest Home
Oh
Videos
yes.
all the time.
Yeah.
So
And now, what advice do you have for parents of being exposed to volleyball for the first time? How can they help support their kid in being developing their skills and just being successful?
I would say just take a step back, enjoy the ride on it, like leave it to the coaches and the kids. Um, you know, don't talk much volleyball on the way home. Again, when my daughter played, I coached her 2 years. It was seventh grade, and then her senior year, we really didn't talk volleyball in the car. In those 2 hour rides back from tournaments that we used to go on. We just talk about other stuff. And again, as a coach's kid, she generally had a good idea
Yeah.
uh, of what was going on out there, and maybe a day or two later at practice, then we would say, hey, the only the only time, here's a funny story, is that her senior year we won the regional championship, and the regional championship point, she actually set the ball to our libero in the back row, who's a super competitive kid, went on to play Division I in college, had a really heavy arm swing. Anybody was about, 5'4" or whatever. And so she short armed it, so she wasn't with the back row attack violation. But, and we were ahead, maybe like 24-17 or whatever. And then I saw the set going to the back row, and I'm like, what's going on here? So on the drive back, I literally said, are you guys telling? Because the whole team went nuts. Like there's a photo of it. Uh, and I'm like, was this like a whole planned thing to get our libero a kill for the match point or whatever. And she said they was. And again, season was over.
Yeah.
That was it for her high school career anyways. And
Ah,
I that's our one volleyball chat that we had on the ride home. And I
yeah.
just kind of smiled to myself and shook my head, and I'm like, well, at least it wasn't, like 23-23 when they tried
Right.
that
Yes.
that hot dog maneuver there. So
Exactly. And then talking about memorable moments, for you as the club director, any memorable moments or success stories that that stick out for you over the years?
I mean, it's when the kids get accepted, to go in college and they want to continue their career. When they come back who want to coach, that's a big one. You mentioned the pad on the courts. I have a blast doing that. Again, it's basically I have, a list of, 10, 12 questions. I walk around with the kids. That's the hardest part of that.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, I just, go into my, alternative retirement career as a game show host or something like that, when I'm chatting with them. So
Yeah. Oh, nice. And now, we're talking about advice for parents and kids. What about for, other, people that are looking to start their own volleyball club? Any advice for them?
boy, it's hard, because in a lot of cases you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
till you get to do it. So, every time, like one thing, like when we grew from, 12 teams to 16 or 20 or 30, like it's actually easier when we're bigger. Yeah, because everything's just numbers on a spreadsheet at that
Yeah.
point, so instead of me ordering 100 uniforms, I'm ordering 150, and like we ask the kids sizes, but I really don't need them anymore. Statistically, I know about what I'm going to need to
Yeah.
order. So, we pre-order things, but for a small club, a mistake in a uniform order can be catastrophic. For
Yeah.
me, when we have extras lying around, we put them in the closet and they're emergency backup libero
Yeah.
uniforms or something, and so, budget wise, it's a small percentage of it, but you got to get in it for the right things. I've had friends who have started clubs, and I said, look, this is not something you want to do, especially if you have a volleyball player for 2 or 3 or 4 years. Your kid graduates, and then you shut down, and fewer kids are playing volleyball, and they have no place to go. I
Yeah.
mean, you want this to be a long-term commitment. We started in '99, so at the time my daughter was, 2, and so I had no idea, that who would go on, oh, excuse my pen there, and would want to play, uh, you know, 16 years later or whatever, or 12 years later. And, I never, had pushed her into it, but, like, just focus on letting the kids get better and worry less about the results. A lot of clubs out there, pitch on, hey, we're gonna turn your kids into all-state players or
Yeah.
and collegiate athletes, that kind of thing. And you're just looking way too far down the road for that. Like for us, we want to provide opportunities for as many kids as possible.
Yeah.
And then, and one thing, like I'll have, parents or coaches saying, hey, can we go play in such and such a tournament? I said, look, if the parents want to do it, yes, because again, when my kid was in high school, I got a true feeling for how expensive it was when you go to a tournament in Washington, D.C. for parking, meals,
Yeah.
the hotels, not just the transportation getting down there. So, like our top teams are going to the Big South in Atlanta this year, so that we just added on one more, tournament that it's just going to be, look, if you guys want to do it, I'm in,
Yeah.
so we just try to support as many teams. Like when we send teams to the nationals, it used to be just our ones teams and they had to qualify. And then now it's our it could be any of our top, 4 teams at a lot of the age levels. If they want to go, I'm like, yeah, we can send you guys down. It's
Yeah.
just, you extend your season a little bit, you get some great competition when you're down there. And it really helps them. Like the level difference between like our ones, threes, or fours teams gone from this much to this much now.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, so now we're gonna have two old guys that were setters talk about a little about the rules these days. you know,
Yes.
yes, like the I was hearing from a high school standpoint, rumors or buzz talking about that second touch now being able to be as sloppy as a first touch, and it's like to me that doesn't help. Yes, it extends rallies, but it doesn't help the kids when they go on to college. What's your what are your thoughts on things like that?
So I've heard this argument for a really long time. Um, and I will honestly say if the ball doesn't go over the net, that the team that's mishandling the ball is paying enough of a penalty in lack of control.
Yeah.
So, let's, for the most part, let them play as long as they're not catching it.
Yeah.
Years ago, I used to play against some guys from Maryland, and their setters would literally go up, and I feel like they would pause
Oh, yeah.
and then look and then send the other direction, and it was like a really prolonged contact.
Yeah.
And, so if it's not caught or thrown, and it's a double, I would say let them go. I would say, so in your time while your daughter's in high school, you'll see nothing change at the high school level. The
Yeah.
high school level is, you know, the last to change anything. They were blocking serves after serves blocking had been banned everywhere else. Everything in the high school rule book takes a couple years to
Yeah.
to filter down. So that'll be further away. And if you go like if you go play internationally, almost nothing gets called. You go nationally, just a little less than almost nothing
Yeah.
gets called. Collegiately, very little gets called. Club, a little bit more, and high school the most,
Yeah.
And so, I think that's just the referees and their current level of training,
Yeah.
varies between the two of them and their points of emphasis, but for the most part, like I've enjoyed, the rules, multiple contacts on the first ball
Yeah.
are legal, that kind of stuff. The overhand serve receive, took me a long
Yes,
time
I'm
to
with
go
you.
do it,
Yeah.
yeah, there was recent conversation internationally about going back to not allowing a multiple contact on the first one. I mean, this is recently as 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and I haven't heard anything on that
Yeah.
lately. So I mean, that would cause a lot of people to relearn everything about their game if they had to entirely platform pass.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a
So,
discussion with the Hawaii coach and talking about the international because he'd played pros and he was talking about adjustments and whatnot, and maybe moving the back row tack line back to make it because everyone's getting stronger, jumping higher again, trying to prolong rallies because on the men's higher level, their rallies are done quickly.
yeah, I had this was quite a few years ago, but one of the guys I played with had played pro in Finland, and so he came back. We played in a tournament at the end of his pro season, and he was probably 6'7" and had about close to a 38 or 40-inch vertical jump. And so for him, it's just as a like a low level pro. I remember the very first ball I set him, he was in the back row. I set him the D ball, and I set about 3 feet from the net. And I'm like, uh-oh, he's in the back row. And he went and destroyed it. And I'm like, wait, what? I said, "Oh, I set that way too close." He's like, no, I can go get that. You've been training for, 6 months and everything like that. So look, imagine international players of that size and what
Right.
they can do with it now. I haven't heard as much about moving the attack line back, but they were flirting with thinking about, do you have to jump and land behind the attack
Ah,
line?
okay.
So you couldn't clear the line. But again, lots of other odd stuff comes in if you
Yeah.
go to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of feel like any change that they do would be really major for that,
Yeah.
as a setter, now that I'm old and I've lost more jump than I have left. Like when I was younger, I would always enjoy jumping up on balls in the plane. And if the
Yes.
blocker was there, let me fight through it. Like if I can push it out and get it to the outside,
Yeah.
let me do it instead of being called a back row
Hmm.
block or anything like that. And so they clamped down on that. And again, it's less of a factor for me now, because the net's here and I can get maybe to,
Right.
up over here over it or whatever. But
Yeah.
you know, so
Uh,
I mean, there are a few things you can liberalize, fewer whistles being blown. I think are still better, right?
yep.
Because as much as you want the kids to learn the right technique, like I still hear high school coaches that say, yeah, there were, 9 violations whistled each set in the high school match. Well, then the kids aren't playing rallies, like in
Right.
our club, and especially with the younger age groups of practices in our spring and fall programs, it's just like, we'll we encourage them to use 3 hits,
Yep.
or, we'll let the rally go out. And then if they did something wrong, say, okay, you know,
Yep.
3 times the back and forth with the ball before that, somebody mishandled it or even hit the net. And then, we'll call it now. So
Yeah.
let's get the rallies in.
Yeah, because because even if they mishandle it, they're still going to use their skills to chase down that ball, try to dig it up, and it just gives them more touches and more experience.
Yeah. And again, like high school boys, when I coached there, they were constantly arguing about this and that, about the rules or whatever. And they'd be like, coach, he hit the net or he lifted it or whatever. And I said, in the middle of the rally, I'm like, I'll tell you what happened at the end. So let's keep playing it because you don't know whether I'm going to call it or not. And a lot of times I would actually go in and intentionally make a bad lines call or something. You hit the net, even though it was the other guy, just because mentally you can't let, losing a point cost you the next one or two or three because, you mentally put yourself out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
All right. So now away from Husky, you're not, you don't have the whistle or anything like that. What do you like to do?
what do I like to do? I mean, I, my wife and I do a lot of hiking, so when I go out and play in Utah, we've done, the Mighty Five Utah National
Oh,
Parks. We've gone to
nice.
Moab. We've gone to Rocky Mountain National Park. One time right before COVID, I played in Portugal. We stopped in the Azores,
Oh,
hiked
wow.
down into some volcanoes and stuff like that. So I really enjoy that stuff a lot. Um, my son now is out of college. He's got his master's. He works for a cybersecurity company. One of my interests was always computer thing. I still listen to computer cybersecurity podcasts
Yeah.
about that. In addition to volleyball, I like to go out, ride my bike on the road. Not a mountain bike guy, but a road bike guy.
Yeah.
Um, and mostly volleyball. Never had time to golf because I used all my time to play volleyball
Yep.
in it. So I
Excellent.
still play, a good amount of volleyball seasonally. Like I just played in 3 tournaments last October because it's a slowish time, for the club. And then, I probably will hang it up until, May,
Yeah.
maybe play in one tournament if somebody asks me to play. But,
Nice.
it's about all the wear and tear I can probably take.
Yes. Yeah, it sucks getting old, doesn't it? Oh, Lord.
Uh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not totally awful, but when somebody asks, like, I periodically heard this in front of my, what do you miss most about getting old? And she like starts shaking her head right away because I have the same answer because I still play in a volleyball. It's like my vertical jump. I
Yep.
miss my vertical jump, because when you play against the other old guys, like the tall guys are still tall,
Right.
and the short guys who used to be able to jump, they can't jump anymore, so,
Yep. Absolutely.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
but it's still fun,
It is. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And we get to live it through our kids too nowadays.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, so my daughter's, she's off in the working world. She lives around Boston, but she's in the last year, she's taken up playing, beach volleyball and some indoors now
Yeah.
again lately, and maybe wants to play a little bit more. So,
Nice. All right. Well,
yeah.
hey, you made it to the end of the podcast, but before I go, like with past guests, I asked them to shout out somebody in their circles or in their peer group that may have a great volleyball story to come on and share with us. Anyone you'd recommend or throw under the bus?
Recommend or throw under the bus with their volleyball experience. I mean, the people I know are either really young, right? So, they're, below 30, who are a lot of our coaches and don't have those stories. This one I would have liked to have prepared
You can always get
uh
back to me if you can't
more.
think of a good one right now.
Yeah, I mean, I have a buddy of mine, Mark Fishman, who used to live in Connecticut, who lives in Hermosa Beach, California now, he started up his own indoor club in Connecticut, and then he's moved out to California. He's been a pro beach coach,
Oh, wow.
so, that would be one,
All right.
and again, like we've had some beach clinics come out. Todd Rogers, who multiple gold medalist. Again, I can't say I know him well, but he came to our place, taught me how to use empty pickle jars with the juice in to make your own pickles by throwing cucumbers in them and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I'm like, wait, this makes so much sense,
Nice.
and you get all the flavoring in it, so you can use it a couple times. That's odd that's the thing,
Yeah.
that I took out of his visit was making pickles out of cucumbers here. So,
Nice. All right. There we go. But actually, I wanted to talk about one other thing before we sign off here. Last summer you guys run a lot of camps, and this past summer you guys had the UConn coaches and players come through. That is a phenomenal experience for all these kids.
yeah, they've done that for a couple of years to the coach prior to Ellen started it there. And again, he basically, the old coach Chris Grunwald had come in, and when he was hired, he couldn't get that first year camp organized. And I happen to know him from when he was young. So, I've got a bunch of years on him. And I said, hey, do you want to do it at our place? And then he said yes. And so we've made it an annual event there,
Yeah.
and again, over COVID, like it's hard for them to host on campus. So that's opening up, and they may do one on campus, but we hope to continue to do that with them every year because it's one of the highlight camps of the summer because their players come in,
Yeah.
they work it, the kids come in, they can sit courtside, watch these guys, scrimmage in a staff game, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, it's a phenomenal experience because the kids make that connection. They see good level of players, and the other thing is these coaches that are running a camp, they're not mailing it in. These are working the kids, teaching good skills, which is fantastic.
yeah, we love having them come, and the UConn staff has been great, and again, like even with the couple of changes they've had, Peter, who's newer, has been great. The guy Matt Scott they had before was fantastic work there, and again, they give a great camp.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Pat. Well, hey, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's fun to be here.